Good morning, mindful meal preppers. My name is Em, and this is Life's Table. We are in week 3 of our 3-4-5 challenge, and I cannot believe how quickly this month is flying by. I think this week's videos are going to look a little bit different. I have a really busy weekend coming up. I'm just going to be cooking all 3 meals today. In this outfit, you're going to see repeats, and I'm sorry for that, but this is just what this week is looking like. Another thing to note for this week that makes this different from other weeks that I've done, I am cooking for friends this week. So what you see me doing is the recipe that we're both following, but I will be doubling my version. I'll be telling you the measurements that you should be following, but I then am going to be doing some quick mental math and doubling what needs to be done so that I can deliver meals to the friends as well as keep some meals for myself. So if my quantities look significantly larger than yours, it's because they are. But regardless, we're gonna get started off with breakfast this morning. We are making delicious tahini granola. I don't know if you guys, I'm hoping you guys have noticed by now, I try really hard to make sure that we incorporate the ingredients that we've purchased previously into future recipes. You'll see later on I will be using the rest of the celery that didn't get consumed this past week. Same thing with the carrots. The secret to cheap eating, cheap meals, is recycling and going with what is already in the pantry. It's to keep the grocery budget even lower than our $5 limits allow. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So tie back your hair if you have to, put on an apron if you've got one, and let's get cooking good looking. We've got a lot to learn today at Life's Table. We're gonna start out by preheating our oven to 325. So go ahead and get that started. And while we're here, pull out a large baking sheet. This has seen some love over the years. Another thing that we will be doing is bringing out a pretty large bowl. Biggest mixing bowl that I have. I'm also actually going to bring out a saucepan as well. We are going to start out by combining a bunch of ingredients. So let's go ahead and get the saucepan heating on medium-low heat. You're going to take half a cup of tahini. I store it upside down so the oil doesn't separate as much as it typically does, but that means we run the risk of it being pretty messy in the beginning. So for you all, it's half a cup. For me, it's going to be a full cup, but pour out what you need. And we're gonna get that into our saucepan that's heating up. Whoops. Already making a mess. Love that. All right, let me get a little spatula scraper just to get all this goodness out. This is where the protein comes from for this meal. And oh my gosh, it is very full of protein. And then when you add things to it, or add it to your breakfasts with like some yogurt or some milk, this is very filling, which I love, between the tahini and the other nuts that we will be adding, making a mess. It's part of the fun. I'll leave this resting here. I shouldn't need it. Oh, I will actually need it in the future. Just kidding. We're gonna take the remainder of our olive oil, 2 tablespoons of olive oil for you all. I'm going to need 4. So 1, 2, for you is good, and it's basically done, so we'll buy more olive oil next week. So 4 for me, 2 for you. Bear with me, I'm sorry, but we do nice things for people we care about. Next, we're gonna do honey. You're gonna need about 1/3 of a cup of honey. I'm going to need 2/3. We'll put this back here. Get our third cup out. Take our honey bear. Honey bear. I love these. I don't know why I love them. I guess I'm a child, that's why. But we got some delicious, good honey for us here. So 1/3 of a cup for you all. 2/3 of a cup for me. And I'll go ahead and get that spatula back, see if it fits at least. It does because it's flexible. Thank you, flexible spatula. Get our teaspoon out. I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of vanilla for me. You only need 1. Salt, we said, is a 1/2 teaspoon for you all. We're doing 1 teaspoon for me. Now, the recipe that I'm following calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. I personally really love cinnamon, so I'm going to use a full teaspoon. Or actually, I'm going to use 2 full teaspoons. If you don't love cinnamon, though, obviously adjust to your preference, adjust to your taste. Gosh, it smells so good in here already. I cannot wait. Now, we are basically done with what's in this concoction. I'm going to take this out and I'm going to give it a stir. My video just stopped recording. Okay, so you want this to give it a stir so that like the salt dissolves, the cinnamon gets fully incorporated. Otherwise it'll kind of just sit on the top. Same thing too with the olive oil. You want this to be warm enough that everything is combining. Okay, good enough. We're gonna move on now to our bowl. You're going to take 3 cups of oats. So I'm doing 6. And actually, I'm not even going to measure because I need 6 and there's 12 servings in this container. I'm just going to use all of it. All right. You're also now going to take the nuts. I chose, because I'm doubling, I chose walnuts and pecans. Both are going to be delicious. You could do almonds. You could do pistachios. I feel like pistachios would be so good in this. Really anything. Brazil nuts would be cool too. But regardless of which you chose, you can't really go wrong. And it does, again, it adds so much good, healthy protein, flavor, everything. I'm going to give this a stir. I think with my wooden spatula, because this is what I'm going to be using to actually bake the granola. Make sure everything is incorporated well. I can't remember if I said this or not. If you have parchment paper, you can line your baking sheet with parchment paper. If you don't, though, it'll be fine. Just know that as it bakes, it's going to get a little bit sticky, and that's okay. That's kind of the point of delicious, good honey granola. All right. At this point, this mixture should be plenty warm. It is. Love that. Turning this off. And I'm going to pour it over gently. Pour it and drizzle it over everything. Scrape your sides to get all that goodness in. And now we stir the same way, making sure that all of this good granola dry ingredients mixes with the good granola wet ingredients. You have much more dry than you have wet, which is good because it's going to make small pieces, but certainly like this has the potential to become straight up like dough. If you think about like oatmeal cookies, if you were to add more wet ingredients, this would very quickly just turn into an oatmeal cookie recipe. And we're not going for that. We're going for small, but still slightly sticky, well-coated granola cereal size pieces. It smells so good. I hope it smells as good for you all as it does for me. This smells incredible. We're just about ready. Yes. Cool. I've had this for so long now. Awesome. Just a little something. It helps to keep too much of it from sticking. All right. Make sure you get all the goodness out. It should come out relatively easily. We'll see. But spread it evenly into a layer. All right, into the oven we go. Middle rack is fine. We bake 25 minutes total, but we flip halfway through. And then while we wait for this, I'm going to go ahead and sit down and we're going to talk about credit and establishing credit today. And I'm really excited for that. See you in a little bit. Hi. So let's talk about credit, and specifically I want us to take this week to lay a pretty solid foundation for establishing credit and a good credit reputation. I'm going to not make any assumptions about where you are in terms of debt management, credit management, which they're kind of one and the same. At the end of the day, both credit and debt it's money you owe to other people. So I'm going to take today to discuss establishing credit, just in case there are people out there who perhaps are not ready to talk about paying down money that they owe because they don't owe money to any people, but they're getting to that point in their life where maybe the things that they want to purchase in the future are more expensive than the things that they have currently. I don't know about you, but I don't have wheelbarrows of cash just lying around for me to purchase a house, right? I don't have hundreds of thousands, if not, depending on the area that you're living in now, like millions of dollars. I don't have that kind of money lying around. I wish that I did, but I don't. And so for those of you who are in that same boat, you don't necessarily have the thousands of dollars that you need for a vehicle. You don't necessarily have the thousands of dollars that you need to afford to go to college. You don't have that kind of money, but you still have those goals for yourself. You still have the need for a vehicle you have to get around, or you have the desire to go to college because you know that a degree equals more job opportunities, equals more money, depending on the field that you're in. It's important then that we start looking at credit and debt and the ways to responsibly use it. At the end of the day, credit and debt are tools, okay? I think of it kind of like a hammer, all right? Or a nail gun, or name it, right? In the same way that I could use a nail gun to build a house or whatever it is that I need, a fence, a shed, you name it. In the same way that I could use a nail gun to build something beautiful, I could also use it to inflict significant damage on myself or those around me. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with credit and debt. When used responsibly, when used appropriately, it can really create beautiful things for you, but it can also do significant harm if it gets out of control, if not responsibly used, if not properly managed, even if something happens where you had the money at one point, you had a steady job, you had the ability, the capacity to pay it back, but then you lose that job, right? Life happens too. So even if you were using it responsibly, something happens where you know what you should be doing, but unfortunately you can't afford to do it right now. Credit can be really, really harmful, okay? So I want us, again, for those who don't have it yet, who are perhaps a little bit afraid to take that risk of, I I want to do this, but I want to do it right and I want to do it responsibly. I want to talk about ways to attempt to do it responsibly. So the first one is, when establishing credit, one of the best ways to do that is to go with who you already wheel and deal with. Go with who you are already banking with. I hope that you chose your bank based off of the research that you did on, are they credible institutions? Are they in hot water again for doing another thing that they should not have been doing? Do they offer competitive rates for the accounts that they have? Do they charge you every time that you need to open up an account? Once upon a time, you had to pay to have a savings account, to have a checking account. That's fewer and further between nowadays, but those accounts, those banks are still out there, right? Are you going with perhaps a credit union because your family or you yourself work for an entity that has a good relationship with a credit union? Are you going with who your parents went with because they did the research and they seemed to think it was good enough, and therefore it's got to be good enough for me if it was good enough for them, right? Whatever research you're doing, or whatever research you did to go with the bank that you went with, odds are, if the bank was good for the accounts that you already have, they should be okay for the accounts that you would like to have. They should be okay when it comes to lending as well. Do research though, okay? A great place to start, and this is a place, it is not the place by any means, but websites like NerdWallet are a pretty decent place to begin. Websites like Bankrate are also a pretty decent place to begin researching who is doing what in terms of credit and debt and loans and interest that you have to pay and so on. But the reason why we typically say is start with who you know is where we do assume that you've already done the research and you like this institution enough that you went with them to begin with, so hopefully that means you're gonna like to continue to go with them. Money should be convenient, all right? But part two is, if you don't have credit previously established, you're more likely to find success in opening up a line of credit with an institution you have history with. And here's why. At the end of the day, our timer is going. I'll talk about why when we finish flipping our granola. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the timer so it doesn't interrupt me again. We will take our granola out of the oven for its stir and flip. I'm so excited. And I'm going to make such a mess trying to stir this, but we try anyway because we must. Beautiful. Not too sticky for me. It's still pretty soft and, oops, there's the first one. Soft and dare I say it, moist. And I know that you all perhaps get triggered by words like that, and I apologize. I learned the other day that I have my own words that I dislike even more than that word. But we're looking pretty liquidy still, which is fine because we're only halfway there. But we do want like a nice golden brown toast. Awesome. All right. Use your towel to grip the sides and the edges if you need, which you should because it's hot. What I'm trying to do is get towards the center so that I can flip the underneath pieces. There it is, just as well as I flipped the outside in. I now need to flip the inside out. We're just about done now flipping, which is good. I will readjust my parchment paper a little bit. Now, again, we want to spread this out enough that we lay relatively flat and even. We don't want mountains on one side and valleys or empty spaces on the other. We want a nice even distribution. Hopefully yours is smelling as good as mine is. Awesome. Okay. We now go back in the oven for another 12-ish minutes. And we should have granola. Okay, so credit is trust. If I were to go up to a random stranger, if I were to walk up to you right now and say, "Hi, my name's Em. I promise I'm pretty cool. Pretty please, can I borrow $35,000? Swear I'm good for it. Pinky promise," right? The logical answer for most of us is going to be, who are you? No, excuse me? What are you talking? Why? It's a lot easier to borrow money from people that know us, hopefully, that people that know us, they know our history, they have a history with us, they like us, they so on and so forth. It's a lot easier to borrow money from people that we already have that established relationship with because there's already trust there. The big reason then why we say start with who you're already wheeling and dealing with is not just because hopefully you've done the research and you trust them, but you've been with them for long enough now that they trust you. So that when you say, all right, let's take that relationship to this next level, let's take that next step together, they're more interested, they're more willing, they're more down to do that. Let's say you don't have that relationship established yet. Let's say you're new to finances altogether and you don't necessarily have that yet. Okay. A lot of times institutions, whenever you decide to go with the one that you've researched, a lot of institutions will have things like they call them secured credit cards. And essentially what a secured credit card is if you think about credit backwards, that's kind of how I think about it. And what I mean by that is this: your standard credit card is, the way that it works is you, throughout the month, throughout the payment cycle, you go and you rack up and spend whatever it is that you're trying to spend. And then at the end of that, the credit card company says, okay, this is your balance. This is how much is due. Here's your minimum payment. Here's that. And when establishing that relationship, they'll also establish what's called a credit limit. I am happy to wheel and deal with you, but I'm only happy to wheel and deal up to this dollar amount. So $3,000, $15,000. Every person's credit limit, every credit card is going to be different. But the bank tells you, okay, here's what I'm willing to lend you based off of our reputation, a credit check that I've run on you, which we'll talk about what goes into credit checks here in a little bit for sure. But based off of what I think the limits of my trust are, this is the limit of your credit. Stay below it, okay? You stay below it, you spend money throughout the month, and then at the end of the month, or at the end of the cycle, they then say, okay, here's what's due, you pay back, so on and so forth. What a secured credit card is upfront, you deposit money into the account. $200, $1,000, whatever it is, you deposit money in the beginning, and that then becomes the credit limit, that the trust limit, right? You putting $200 in means that you only get to spend $200 for that month. And so you go and you spend, and then you pay it back at the end of the month. The deposit is the security, it's the collateral. If you spend up to that 200 and you're struggling to pay it, well, they'll just pull the deposit, it's okay, right? And you then re-up the deposit, you increase your credit limit with more money if that's what you want to do. And what happens is it still works like a credit card. They're still tracking the expenses. They're still seeing, okay, you are responsibly using this. You're not going over this limit. You are making wise financial decisions. So with time, either you can then open up an unsecured credit card with them, or some of them will even, depending on the bank, some of them will even offer you the option to just unsecure the credit account that you already have with them. And that's then how you build and establish that relationship. Okay, that's one way. Go with who you know, see if you're already good for it, based off the credit check. consider a secured credit card if you're worried about it or if you're new to credit. Another thing for my parents, if you want to try, if you have a credit card, for example, and you were to try to set your kids up for success with credit, what you can do is add them as an authorized user on your account. Now, there are some significant risks with that, and we will be talking about this right now, okay? Risk number one, you are trusting your credit to your child. If your child does not make smart financial decisions and has a credit card, if they tank your reputation, right, you are the one essentially vetting for the bank. You are the one saying, hey, lenders, I trust this individual with my reputation, add them to my account. If that child then uses and abuses it, that's your reputation getting damaged just as much as it's theirs, okay? That's the first thing. So the way that I've seen parents get around this before is you don't tell the kid that you've done it, right? If a credit card comes in the mail for the child, you cut it up, no one talks about it. It's something that you're secretly doing for your child, essentially to set them up for success in the future, but the bank doesn't need to know that they're not using the credit card, and they don't need to know that they've got credit attached to their name, right? Here's part two though, and this is again equally risky. In the same way that their reputation is tied to you, you are tying your trust and your reputation to them. If you don't have great credit, that means that they are inheriting not great credit. So this is not like a simple solution that meets everyone's needs. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This is a very significant, serious decision that parents make. But if you have good credit, you've got a good credit reputation, and you want to pass that on to your child, there is a way to do that by making them an authorized user. Some banks will have age requirements, like you can't give a 2-year-old a credit card, ma'am, sir, human, okay? Depending on your bank, they will set the limits on what is and is not appropriate and is not acceptable. But it is a way to go for if parents want to establish children as authorized users. And by the way, you don't have to have a parent-child relationship if you want to go in with a partner on this and have your partner make you an authorized user or vice versa. It doesn't have to be a parent-child relationship. It's just what I most frequently saw. So it is what most readily came to mind. So establishing credit with a bank that you already have a reputation with, secured credit cards where you deposit money on the front end, that becomes your credit limit, and then you spend throughout to build your reputation, making someone else an authorized user on your account or asking someone else if you can be an authorized user on theirs. Those are 3 ways to begin establishing and building credit. They're not the only ways by any means. And for those of you who first got started out and you perhaps used an alternative way, like using a store card to build credit or something like that, taking out installment loans instead of credit card loans. I would love to hear how you first began building credit for yourself. And what I will say is, again, in the same way that I'm not going to say everyone should do it this way, I'm asking you all to not do that either. What worked for you is great, and I'm glad that it worked for you, but it may not work for everybody. So for those of you sharing, thank you for sharing. For those of you researching, take it with a grain of salt, because your history with money is going to differ greatly from everyone else's. Okay? With that, our granola should be just about finished up, and I'm so excited. I can smell it. My whole house now smells like vanilla and cinnamon, and it makes me so happy. I'm going to leave it at that because it's a good natural stopping point. Thank you so much for taking care of you today. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video in the same clothes. Have a great day. Bon appetit. Having a little snack break between videos. I'm so excited. Wow. It's super filling with all the protein from the tahini, from the nuts, from the oatmeal and the milk even. Wow. This is definitely going to keep me going for a little while. I'm so excited. Thank you for taking care of you today. Bon appetit.